Alrighty. Looks like we've got two questions, or two for one. Okay. First one, we are struggling with the DocuSign integration because it does not pull in any of the data from our OTC file, i.e. the buyer's name, property address. It's a blank form within DocuSign. Are we missing anything for easier document creation such as automatically bringing in the buyer's name automatically? If not, can you explain the API field mapping feature? Is it possible to use with Dotloop for something like this? Okay, so for our DocuSign integration, it works a little differently from the other integrations that we have. DocuSign is not like Brokerment or Dotloop or SkySlope where we're creating that property in that particular, in DocuSign and having it that you can bring over the data. The DocuSign integration for open to close, the way that it's currently functioning is that it allows you to take a document from open to close. So let's say this document here. And if we wanted signatures on it, what we can do is we can send that document through DocuSign. So here I can send it over to DocuSign, create the envelope. I can say who the signers are. So who's going to be the people that are signing that particular document. And then I build the envelope. So there is no API field mapping template. I am not connecting DocuSign to the open to close to an envelope, or I'm not even sure. I think it's actually called a room in DocuSign when it's a property. We're not actually connecting any of that data as much as it allows you to send documents that you've received into open to close out into DocuSign, send them out for signatures, and then get them back into open to close. So the idea is just specifically it's for signatures. So it's not the same as like I said, Dotloop or Brokerment or SkySlope. The API field mapping template feature, is it possible to use for Dotloop or something like this? Yes. If you wanted to bring over the information from open to close into Dotloop, yes, you can use the API field mapping template to make it so that it's faster to export the data from open to close into Dotloop. First, obviously, you'll make sure that you have that Dotloop connection here. You just want to make sure that you have your integration connected correctly. Then you're going to head over to our hammer icon into templates. Once you're in there, you're going to go to API field mapping template. Here we've got our Dotloop fields, but here we're going to select add new. We'll select the API that we want to do. So here we've got Dotloop. We'll name that one. So we can just call it DL fields. Say create. I'm going to select edit. And then here, this is where I'm like mapping those fields. So everything on this side is going to be open to close. Everything on the opposite side is going to be Dotloop. One caveat when we're creating our field API field mapping templates is to be very careful about which fields we're selecting. If I select the wrong field and then I change it and I go, oh, actually it's city. Sometimes there's issues with it actually properly mapping. So I always suggest if you accidentally select the wrong field, select choose field first to wipe it, and then go back and try to select that actual field. So city, instead of, oh, I selected the wrong field. Let me just select the correct field. There's just some issues with the refresh on this page. And so when we say choose field, that refreshes it automatically. So again, if I accidentally start to type in STA and I don't click on state and I click on EDM status, okay, that's not what the state is, right? That's not the correct field. And I go back to click on state, I'm first going to want to make sure to select choose field. That way I can reset it because that's me resetting it there. And then I'm going to want to select state. Okay, so or just don't select the wrong one in the first place. That would be the easiest way to do it, is just to make sure that when you're looking for that field, you make sure that it's the correct field mapped here. Now, once you've gone through and you've mapped all of the details that you need to map and said, this is what it is in open to close, this is what it is in Dotloop, that's how I want it to be connected. When you go to that property, depending on what step in the process you're either going to be, and I'm going to go ahead and disconnect this one. You're either going to be linking it to a property that already exists in Dotloop. Maybe you've just got the structure for it, which is like maybe you just got the property address, but you don't have any of the details, right? The due dates, the party members, the document. Maybe you don't have that portion set up. So you can link it or you can export it. Exporting it, both of them are going to be using that same kind of tool where we're going to want to use that API template to make sure we're mapping the fields correctly. But we can export it. We can select our profile, say next. Here it's going to ask for that API template. I can click on DL fields. If I scroll down, I'm sure that just those 2 fields that I selected are going to show, or 3 fields I selected are going to show up. So here you can see that they're mapped appropriately. I didn't map any of the other fields, but I would want to do that. I could select my loop type, and then I'll select create loop. I already have a loop created, so I'm not going to do that. I believe if I scroll to the bottom, there should be a disconnect. No, there's not. Okay, no worries. Let's go ahead and just go back to Dotloop and we'll say search. And if we wanted to link it to a property that's already existing, we're going to select that profile. We might want to sort the loops by A to Z or newest created first. Right now, there's no way to search for loops within Dotloop in the same way. It doesn't provide an address or a name. That's kind of what this little notification here says. So I'm going to want to scroll until I locate that particular address. Here's that same IV1 address. We'll go ahead and say assign, and now they've been linked. To import the details, I can click on import details. It's once again going to ask me, okay, well, what's the API template that we're going to use? I can select that template. It's going to refresh. It's going to pull in and apply that template. I can scroll to the bottom and say import details. Cool. Part 2 of the question, can you do a walkthrough of a complete commission template and show the ways to create the calculations? Sure. So first things first, depending on what pricing plan you're on, I would always double check that. So you're going to, in your open to close account, you're going to head over to your little person icon. You're going to go to plan and billing. Here you'll see what plan you're on. I'm on the scale plan, which means I can create as many commission templates as I need. If you guys are on the pro plan, I'm just going to go down to the commission template area. There we go. If we're on the pro plan, we're going to be able to create 3 templates and have 3 reports per property. And if you guys are on the grow plan, you're not going to be able to create commission templates. So you're going to be creating that commission calculation on the property every single time that you need to create it. Now, one thing with our commission templates, it's a little hard for me to review it from beginning to end because commissions are different for every single person, right? Some people use caps, some people don't, some people have specific fees. Sometimes you'll have it's more complex than just creating a simple, straightforward one. So I'm going to do it as simple as I possibly can to show you guys how this tool is used. And we can go over a couple of the ways that we can use the fields in tandem with it. So first things first, again, I can either create the commission report on the property that I need to. This would be the solution for anyone who is on the grow plan. If you are on the pro plan and you haven't or you need to create templates, you're just going to head over to our hammer icon into templates. You're going to go down until you see commission templates. I think it's like 4th from the bottom. Here I have 2 commission templates that are already built out. If I was on the pro plan, I can only create 3. So 3 commission templates, right? So I could create another one if I needed to, or I could edit the one that's already here. And then if I'm on the scale plan, I can create as many as I need to. Let's go ahead and open up the buyer side. So the way that this commission template works is it's going to give us just a flat number. Okay. So this is going to pull in the purchase amount. Right now, we're just getting a pretend number that we're going to put in here so that we can play with it. When we're talking about the commission fields here at the bottom, it kind of depends on how we have it set up. I'm going to go ahead and just create a new one. That way we can build it from scratch. And I'll just call this Hannah's template. Go ahead and select edit. We're not going to worry about uploading the logo. We're not going to worry about widgets right now. We're just going to focus on that part where we're creating that calculation. So I'm going to click on add a top level step. And this is going to be my first level step. So maybe I need to calculate my buyer GCI. My action type, do I want to take a percentage of the purchase amount? Do I want to copy a value from a field, or do I want to enter in a flat amount? The copy of value from a field is going to be helpful if I'm tracking those, percentages on the property itself. So I can say copy of value from a field. Here, I can type in that field if I want to. So here I could type in buyer. Here's that buyer commission percentage if I need to grab that, or flat fee. So I can say percentage. And then here, the download options for step, calculation, and total. What this means is it's just going to show the math that it's doing on that CDA versus just having these are the values, right? Instead of just saying like this is how much it was, this is how much it's going to be. This will actually show that step, like, okay, this is the next step for it. So I like to select those just so that we can have more transparency. But it's not something that you need to have selected every single time. I would play around with it and see what makes the most sense for you guys. I can select add step, and it's going to add that step in here. Again, this says that it's going to be the percentage in the value, or sorry, the value in the property will be used. This is just a sample, right? So it's just an example of what it could look like. I'm going to go ahead and say add another top level step. I'm going to name it the same exact thing and show you guys what it looks like if you're like, oh, well, I know what the amount is every single time. It's a specific amount of the purchase amount. It's 3% every single time. So I'll just go ahead and pop in a 3 and say add step. And if we scroll down here, we can say 3% is $3,000. So here you can see like how either we're using it from a field that's already existing on the property, or we're entering in that value that is going to be a static value every single time. Now from here, if I need to subtract some more fees from this amount, right? I'm going to select inside of that actual box, that step that we have here. So I can select add, and let's say I need to minus the transaction fee. So I'll just call it TC fee. Here for my action type, I have a couple more options. I'm either splitting it, right? If I need to split it down the middle, I can do a nested calculation. So this is adding or subtracting, or with a percentage or with a dollar amount. So if I know that the dollar amount for that TC fee, maybe we are, once again, either we're tracking it in our fields. We already know what the value is. It's a static value for our TC fee every single time. So we put that in our fields. And so we want to copy it from a field. Or again, if we want to make sure that, like it's not something that we're relating back to our fields, it's something that we enter in. Or I'm sorry, it's something that is already built into the commission calculator. We can select this one. I'm going to go ahead, and for the sake of just showing the way this works, we'll go ahead and say that we're copying it from a field. The field that we're looking for, I think I have one called TC fee. Let's see. Transaction file fee. There we go. And then here underneath action, we're selecting whether we're saying we're adding the amount or subtracting the amount. I'm going to go ahead and say subtract, and then add on that step so we can see what that looks like, and that calculation so we can see how the math is filtering. So we'll go ahead and do add step here once again. So this is just pulling out a pretend number. It's saying 100. For below, we'll do the same exact thing, but instead of following it from a fee, we're going to just enter in a value. So I'm going to go ahead and say add. Here, I'm just going to call it TC fee again. We'll go ahead and say once again that we're, for this case, we can say that we're subtracting a flat fee amount, and we'll say that it's 500. And so the reason I'm doing, again, this is what's determining whether it's a flat fee, that's like a dollar amount, or a percentage. If I were to select the percentage one, it's going to convert this to 500%. If I select the dollar amount, it's going to be $500. So I'll go ahead and say add that in there. And so now you can see how it's calculating that amount here down at the bottom. For this one, it's going to work the same exact way. It's just the values aren't going to show up yet because we don't have, once we apply this to a property, it's going to look a little different. Cool. So if we have to add another step where we're removing it from, again, the buyer GCI, let's say it's the agent split. Again, we're going to add in a split. We'll go ahead and say we're copying from a value. We're going to go ahead and look for, see, because that one's the buyer commission one. We'll go ahead and say this is actually the brokerage split. Changing it just because I want to make sure that we're using fields that we already have built out. I don't want to have to go build out fields. So we'll go ahead and say that's the brokerage split. Add that in there. And now we've got that brokerage split as well. Again, that's going to be pulling from our property. Once we have that field on there, that's what we're going to pulling that value from. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the same exact thing down here. So again, we're going to add it here. This top level step, we'll do broker split. We'll go ahead and say that we're removing a percentage, add a split percentage. We'll go ahead and say it's 50%. Add that in there. So now it's pulling that 50%. Now, the reason that I did this step was so that just in case the broker also has to pay a fee, maybe there's another fee that the broker has to pay. So here I can go ahead, maybe it's like a team lead fee or something like that. So I'll go ahead and add on another fee, and we'll just call this, I think I have a couple other names for fees in here. So I'll just go ahead and grab that verbiage there. We'll go ahead and once again say that we're minusing either, again, a value or a either a percentage or a dollar amount. So I'll go ahead and say we're minusing a dollar amount, and it's going to be 500. Subtracting, add that on there. And this is how it's removing that amount from that brokerage split as well. So moving back up for our one that's going to be copying from our fields, let me go ahead and say add. I'm not sure if I have this field built out, but we'll go ahead and see if I do. We'll go ahead and say it is a minusing of specific value. We'll go ahead and see what values we have. There we go. We'll just use this broker flat fee amount. Go ahead and say subtract and add that on there. So now that I've got a part of this built out, right? I've got two versions of it, one that's using the fields, one that's not using the fields. Let's go ahead and go and apply it to an actual property. So I'm going to exit out of my template editor. I don't need to do anything else. There is no save button. It automatically saves as I use it. So we'll go ahead and exit out of that. Let's go ahead and go over to a property. Let's see French Road. Let's see how much the purchase amount is on here. Let me just quickly search the fields. Oh, I don't even have a purchase amount field on this property. Give me a moment. Let's go ahead and go to a different one. Okay, let's go ahead and add on that field. Here we go. Purchase amount, update fields. Cool, purchase amount. Here, I'm just going to add in a value. We'll go over to our commissions, and then I'm going to go ahead and delete this one because we don't need that one now. And I'm going to go ahead and say create commission calculator, and I'm just going to, or commission report. I'm just going to put Hannah's commission and say submit. Once I've created it, we're going to click on it. We're going to go to apply template over here. And we're going to apply that template that we just created. Now I might need to go in and add in more additional fields. So let's just go ahead and head over to our property details, click on our commission details. Here you can see there's no fields. So we'll go back over to transaction details, go to manage, and then I'll grab on those fields that I need. So let's grab these amounts. I think we were just doing buyer side, transaction fee. I think that was all the fields that we were using. There we go. And let's go ahead and add in some values into these fields. So buyer side percentage, let's go ahead and say that they're doing 3%. The flat fee, we'll go ahead and say that's $500. And the transaction fee, I'm going to go ahead and say that that's $1,500. For brokerage fees, we'll go ahead and say that that's $1,000. The split percentage, we'll go ahead and say that's 50. Again, I'm just putting in pretend numbers, and I'm not going to worry about the total net right now. And then I'm just going to go ahead and refresh this template so that way it can pull in the values. So now when I scroll down here, we can see that this top one is bringing in that amount. So 3% of 300K, it's going to be 9,000. Here we see that TC fee. Here we see that amount that's going to be given to the brokerage. There's that fee that's below. And then this is how it calculates how much is due for the brokerage. Now it does have that total calculation down at the bottom of like, this is how much it is at the end after all fees have been subtracted. This is how much it is. We would probably want to add on another step to figure out the GCI fee after this, like how much is the actual buyer side commission getting? Like we would probably want to add in another calculation to pull that in too. If we scroll down here, we can see that value is pulling up different numbers because I have different values entered in here right now. But this is essentially how that commission calculator works. Are there any questions? Again, my best suggestion is to go through, grab one of your commission calculators and build it out into open and close. One thing that is something that I've heard a lot when it comes to our clients is, well, when I'm using the commission calculator, how do I track my caps? Because a lot of people do have agent caps. Open to close because currently does not have the ability to track caps. It's something that we can definitely look into, especially if that's a feature that a lot of you guys are looking to use with our commission calculator. If you remember, our commission feature is relatively new, so we're always taking feedback to figure out how to improve it, how to get it better. But yeah, it's just sort of getting feedback from you guys to know what it is that you need to see or want to see. Cool. Alrighty. Let me see. Any PDFs that, yep, yes, you can do a PDF version for this that you can export. Going back over to the commission calculator, we can say download CDA if we want to. It's going to pull open a screen, prompt me to download. We'll go ahead and click on that. Here we can see what that CDA looks like. Again, that's kind of one of the things that's kind of cool about being able to use that DocuSign integration is if you need signatures on the bottom of this, you can just place them on the page when you use that DocuSign integration. Either or, you can use it to just get the numbers if you need it to get the numbers, or you can use this PDF. This should work for the most part for you guys. Now, we skipped over the widgets a little bit, but there are some widgets on here that are pretty cool that you could bring in. So if you need to add on the people, if you need to put on like a, let's just say buyer's agent. Here, where it comes to options, we can select a specific person. So we can say we're looking for a specific contact and say add. Here I can choose that buyer's agent. Let's just pretend it's Hannah. And now we have that contact on there. When I go to, let me go ahead and say back to reports and download that CDA again. Here we can see the buyer's agent right there. There's a couple things with the widgets that are pretty cool. Let me see if I can grab on some more information too. I want to say that contact role only, I don't know if we'll have to see what, I think it just says buyer's agent. I don't think it actually brings on the buyer's agent there. I think it just says contact role. But I would double check with these ones too, because we could bring on a field, we can bring on a blank thing, and let's just say info or disclosure. And then a blank one allows us to type in. So if you need to pop in any verbiage at the top there, you can. It kind of just depends on what you need on that CDA. So if I pop in, this is a test. Thanks. And I press enter on my keyboard again. Whenever we see purple, we're going to want to press enter on our keyboard to make sure that it saves. When it goes from purple to gray or purple to white, that means that it's saved. We'll go ahead and say back to reports. Let me just download it again. Lots of versions of this one. Here you can see that it says like disclosure, buyer's agent name, and then we'll have the values below that. So it just kind of depends on what you need with it. Again, I would say play around with it. Add on a couple widgets, play around with the widgets, add in the values if needed. Looks like there's a download CDA at the bottom. I totally didn't even think about scrolling to the bottom. Add in your logo if you need to drag and drop and update your logo. You can also add in more instructions if you need to update the instructions. It just kind of depends on what you need and how you need it to look. Cool. No worries. Awesome. Okay, looks like we've got another question. We're beginning to implement client portal process and finding that the initial invitation to the client has been a little clunky, brings them to a login page, but doesn't ask them to create an account, just has the user and the password fields. The only way to make a password is to click reset password. Is there a step that we're missing? Yes, there is a step that you're missing. Let me pull that open because I have a great example of it. So I have the client this is actually what they should be receiving. They should be receiving an email from you. That's called an open to close client portal has been set up for you. So that's the first thing, is that they should be receiving an email from you. I would definitely, and I'm going to go ahead and grab this language and I'm going to type an answer to you and I'm going to send it to you because that's the title of that email. Let me go ahead and grab that question though again. That's the title of that email. So that's the subject line. I would have your client search that, or if you need to send them a follow-up email and say, hey, client portal has been created for you. Double check your inbox, look for this particular email. It should be from hello open to close. This is coming from our open to close system. So actually maybe I should check on that and see about deliverability for those emails too. If your clients are not seeing this email, they should be receiving this email. This is an example of what it looks like. It says you've been created or whatever. It'll show the email. It'll show the username. If a username has been created for it, it'll show the password and then it'll show that URL to log in. And then when that client does log in, this is what it's going to look like for them. So they're going to have that same exact screen to log in. They'll use their email, pop in that password. It will prompt them to add in a phone number and to update that password. They can say log in. Once they log in, they're going to have access to that property. Now, depending on how you guys set up your open to close account and what you gave them permission to will change based off of what's here, right? When we're looking in open to close, and I'm just going to go ahead and minimize the screen and hopefully you guys can still see. Okay, cool. When we're looking in open to close, let me just go to a contact. Let me go to Hannah. Let's say Hannah here, I want her to get access to the client portal every single time. So here I've got, yes, send that invite automatically. I selected a role for her. These roles are going to be what determines what that person sees in their client portal view. So you can have like a couple different versions of it here. You can see I have a couple different versions of it. My broker owner has access to everything. I want them to see everything on that property. But maybe my buyer, which is just my regular buyer, only gets to see the timeline details, documents, and the ability to download documents. Maybe my buyer 2023 gets the ability to upload documents, or maybe I want to give them access to see the completed tasks. So it just kind of depends on what you want to share with that person. Make sure that your portal roles are set up correctly. That way they can see it. But when it comes to that actual invitation, they should be receiving an email from open to close that looks something like this, that shares their email address. Their username is just going to be that domain for their email address. So if we're looking in open to close, pull that open again, we'll go to Hannah. Here, this is going to be my username for that particular client portal. It just grabs what that the beginning part of the email address for the client. Let me know if the other thing I would suggest too is send out a test one to yourself. I just created an additional Gmail account. That's what this one is, so that I can send myself a client portal and I can see what that looks like and make sure that it shows up correctly. If the person has already been invited to an open to close account, for example, this person's already been invited, right? This client right here, this portal's already been created. If they were added onto another property and they need to get access to that property as well, they're not going to get another separate email for it. Let me see if I can grab someone for it. I have a couple versions of myself in here. Let's see, Hannah, let me grab the email and update. Okay, let's grab this, Hannah, and let's add in this email. Okay, let's go to client portal. We're going to say yes, send automatically. And we're going to give them the broker owner permissions. So now they're on there. I'm going to go to this property here. I'm going to go to contacts. I'm going to locate Hannah and I'm just going to set that role on her actually, I'm not going to set that role in. I'm going to send the portal invite. So here's what it looks like if we're sending out that portal invite. Again, it's going to go to that same email. I'm going to go ahead and say send invite. The invite has been sent. Now let's go ahead and check that other email. Again, I don't believe they're going to get a secondary email. They might. Cool, they did. That's what that email looks like when they've been added on. So if they already have an existing client account, client portal account, right? What it will look like when they get added to a new property. Let's say you're working with someone who was a seller for you and they contact you and they go, hey, actually, I want you to help me purchase my next house. And so you want to get them onto another property so that they can see the buyer side version of that house. This is what it'll look like when they're added to it. When we go over into open to close, I'm just going to go ahead and refresh the screen and we'll go ahead and log out. So that way we're logging in. Same exact login that they used before. Log in. Here now we see they have access to that initial property they were on and that new property that they were on. Now, obviously, I updated the client portal role on that new property, so they've got access to a lot more things than they did before. But that's what that would look like when we're giving them access to multiple properties. They'll get an email from us letting them know that they have a new property to review. We've been sending the test emails to ourselves multiple times, so it's not sending the login information. It could be that. Yeah, it definitely could be. That would be the other thing too, is if you're using the same email that you use to log into open to close, and then you have it as the same exact way that it's spelled for the client portal role, you're going to run into some issues. What I would suggest is if you are like, I don't want to create 50 bajillion emails, Hannah, I would like it that I could have it go to one inbox. When you go through and you set that up to test it out, this is what I would suggest. I'm going to head back over to where I have Hannah. Here we can see this is a Hannah at open to close right here. This is my email. Like this is an email. All of you guys can email me. This is going to go into my email inbox. If I wanted to test out what that client portal looks like, I'm going to alter this email slightly so that it's easier for me to see what that looks like. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and put in + client, and I can type in client portal if I want to. I can type in whatever I want after that +, but we'll just say + client portal and press enter. And now if I set it up that this person needs to get added to a client portal every single time, I'll receive it in my inbox, right? My open to close inbox. But the login for that is going to be different from the login that I would traditionally use. Because when I log into open to close, it does ask me to log in as Hannah at opentoclose.com, right? To access my open to close account. So if we wanted to test it out using the same email, you're just going to want to make sure that you add in what's called an email alias. This email alias, this is kind of a tip that I use, and I'll share this for all of you guys. This is something that I use whenever I set up any kind of subscription with any kind of service. So I go into Netflix and I create a Netflix account. My Gmail account, I will do Hannah plus Netflix at gmail.com. And the reason I do that is because it allows me to track where that email is being used. And every single time I go to Netflix, I know that it's just Hannah plus Netflix at gmail.com. So it's a tool that you can use not only just in open to close, but you can use it for other services as well. It just creates a slightly different version of your same email account. I've talked about this before. It's a tool that I see it getting more and more popular recently, especially when it comes to email tracking. It's a little bit of a manual process adding that in there, but I think it's something that is pretty helpful, especially in these kinds of cases, because open to close, when you create your account and you use that email, that's the only version that it can be associated with that particular account. So if you try to use that same exact version with the spelling exactly the same, no plus or anything like this, then you might run into some issues with being able to create that other account. It could say that this email is already in use. It could say that the email, and I know you guys have seen that when you've invited, your agent portal users, to your open to close account, and they're like, this email is already in use. And you can see that I have a lot of examples of me using it, right? This is for one of my agents here. It says Hannah plus agent portal at open to close. That's still my open to close account. It's still my open to close Gmail, but I've added in that plus agent portal. That way I can have a different version of that email associated with that agent portal user. Let me know if that makes sense. I know that that was a long-winded way of doing it. I've got that also for some of my my coworkers as well. You can see we use that tool a lot. Even this one says plus 13. We use that tool a lot. Cool. Alrighty. Again, I'm just gonna make sure everyone, if you haven't already, I would love to get some feedback on that poll that I just threw up, the Wednesday workshop learning style poll. This is really gonna help us influence how we are going to be training you guys in the future. I want to make sure that we are able to share and provide information in the way that's easiest for you guys to like digest it. Learning styles are something that's pretty fun, and everyone has a different way of learning. There's definitely a couple more than the ones that we have listed here, but these are the main ones that we see people doing. For example, I believe I am, and let me pull up the poll because I know what kind of learning style I have too. I am a hands-on learner and a written learner. Personally, that's the type of learner I am. So I like to dive in and actually play around and kind of try to break the program. And I also really, really like written guides. I like being able to follow a step by step because it allows me to go, okay, I'm going to spend 15 minutes on this. Let me read this guide. Cool, gotten through this. Let me try it out. And I know where I stopped at. Some people are better at doing auditory. They want to have a guide on where they're going, that's auditory, like through a podcast, or an audio guide. And then some people are visual learners, similar to how kind of what we're doing right now on these training calls, where I'm showing you where to go and I'm showing you what to click on it in your account so you guys can kind of follow along. So that kind of information is super helpful for us because it allows us to create more training that you guys are like, cool, this makes sense to me. Like I'm able to understand this. But yeah, awesome. Alrighty, it looks like we don't have any other questions in the Q&A right now. Let me just pull up our FAQs that we can go over. We've got a question here. It says, I don't have Google Workspace. What do I do? So if you do not have a Google Workspace account, think about getting one. And the reason I say that is because your other option is going to be using the Zendesk version of it. So I'm just going to go down to email addresses. That's underneath that gear icon. Email addresses. This is going to allow you to open up those email addresses. If you do not have a Google Workspace account or a Microsoft account that you're connecting to open to close, you can technically still create a non-API email address. When you go to create it, you can enter in whatever language you want. So I can say Hannah at peanutbutter .com. And that can be the email that I'm sending my emails from. Or I can put in Hannah at realestateteam.com if I want to as well. So when we're sending out an email through non-API, we're sending it from SendGrid. Sometimes that means that the email deliverability is going to be a little spotty. Sometimes the emails will get out, sometimes they won't. Sometimes it'll have issues getting into inboxes because there's a lot more email verification and security when it comes to receiving emails. So I always say, if you can, at whatever point that's available to you, upgrade to that Google Workspace account. That way you can make sure that your emails are coming from a verified email system versus trying to send it through SendGrid. The other kind of thing with this is that when the emails are sent out, they're not logged anywhere. They're not in an outbox for your Gmail account or Outlook account. They're not going to be in the sent folders. They're only going to be logged within open to close. So if you ever need to go and you're like on the go, right? And really quickly, you just want to check to see if an email's been sent. You're not going to be able to open up your Gmail to see was an email sent. If you're using that non-API, you're going to have to go into open to close. You're going to have to head over to emails, locate the property, head over to emails, and then go to sent. And then here you'll see that whether or not that email was sent out. Okay. So there's just some things with it that I would say, like, it's probably best to look into upgrading and getting yourself set up with a Google Workspace account or a Microsoft account versus trying to do it through SendGrid. It's still a solution that you can use. If you're just getting started with open and close, you're still trying to figure things out, you're still baking things, or still, customizing and upgrading your account, definitely create a non-API email. You see, I've got one right here. Meow@meow.com has been in here since the very beginning of this particular account. And I have it in there so that when I wanted to test out my intake forms, if and most of you guys probably do when you're testing it out, that intake form, before it gets approved, it asks you to add a email. In your defaults and settings, it wants you to select one. So if you don't have one in there, create a non-API one. That way you can have it selected and you can send out test emails. Just keep in mind that the recording of those emails is going to stay unique to that particular property. Cool. Okay. So we're having some people have issues where the email template is showing missing merge fields. But when I go to try to add in for those merge fields, I'm not able to find the field. It could be because that field was deleted. So something that I usually suggest, if you are going through and you've made a ton of edits to your system, you've deleted a ton of fields from your system. After you're done deleting those fields, removing them, altering them, whatever you ended up doing with them, head over to your hammer icon, click into templates. Once you're on templates, you're going to select clean templates. What this is going to do is we're going to scan for those merge fields. So this is going to be curly bracket, merge underscore field, curly bracket, curly bracket. Once we have that selected here, we're going to select scan templates, and this is going to show us any email templates that are missing verbiage. So here in my account, you can see I have a ton. That's because I changed this contact role from seller agent to listing agent. And so now that I've removed, altered, edited that particular merge field, specifically for our contact roles, I'm going to want to come in here and I'm going to want to remap it. So here, I'm going to put in curly bracket, listing underscore agent underscore full name. And I'm going to want to select them from the list. And so what I'm doing is I'm remapping those fields. This is a lot faster than doing it the other way, where you're trying to figure out which email templates was using what merge fields. This is a great example of how you can use that clean templates and text message templates, it looks like, wonderful, to update those merge fields to pull in the correct fields. So here, earnest money amount. I think that it's called, cool. It's called earnest money amount OTC. So I'll go ahead and select that one. Now that one's been selected, let's go ahead and go to the next one. Again, it's just going through and it's trying to figure out earnest money, OTC due date. Go ahead and select that one. And it's going down. And once we've made sure that we've mapped those fields correctly to make sure, if, again, let's say we deleted them or we removed them and we recreated them, that's probably what happened in this case with our fields. We deleted them, we recreated them. We'll want to remap it. At the bottom, we'll say I verified and update templates. And then it's going to go through and it's going to update those templates. Now, I didn't do all of them, right? So if I click on clean templates again and I say scan templates, it's going to show me the list of the ones that I did not complete. So I didn't complete that seller agent business name or email. I didn't add in that home inspection or the home inspection start time. I didn't add in the rest of those fields either. So I just want to go through and I want to slowly but surely make my way down the list, updating all of those merge fields, selecting I have updated and updating them so that way those merge fields have been updated accordingly. It's a pretty cool tool. I haven't seen a ton of people use it, but I definitely wanted to highlight it because especially when you're going through and let's say, it's been like 3 or 4 months of you using open to close, you start to audit your fields and you're adding in more and you're like, oh, you know what? I might need to clean up my email templates because I was using some of those fields. They were in some of the email templates. Cleaning email templates is going to be a fast way to do that. Cool. Looks like we got a question, how to disable reoccurring tasks. This is one thing that we are definitely in the, it's something that we need to investigate a little bit more on our end. But when we create a reoccurring task, it reoccurs forever. It does not stop reoccurring. So if I go here and I say that this is a reoccurring task, open up 7 days, it will open up 7 days even after the contract is marked as closed. When we go to mark something as closed though, okay? Like if we update the status, let's go ahead and go to that Angela Street here. This is the Angela Street here. I'm going to want to update my contract status. So I'm just going down until I find my file status right here. I'm going to click on that. When I update it to closed, let's go ahead and say canceled actually. Any of the file statuses that you might want to select it to. We'll just say canceled for this example. And I say yes. we're going to want to look at this where we have this delete all uncompleted tasks or delete all tasks. Now, I typically say delete all uncompleted tasks. We still want those ones that you did complete. That way you know what you did do for that particular client. But you can select all tasks if you want to remove all task templates. Now, with that reoccurring task, if that reoccurring task is checked off, when it comes back up to those 7 days, that reoccurring task is going to come back up, regardless whether you've said completed all, delete all uncompleted tasks, because it's reoccurring. So the best way to get rid of a reoccurring task, if this one, for example, I'm going to say was reoccurring, and we say that it's every 7 days that's reoccurring. To remove that reoccurring task, we're going to want to click on that reoccurring button on the property. We're going to want to remove where it says 7 and say update. That's the best way to make sure that no reoccurring tasks come back, is by actually just removing it completely. Something that I usually suggest for our reoccurring tasks as well, if you guys are using those, is to go through your task templates and tag them. Okay. Tagging is so incredibly helpful. If you want to do a cleanup, I would tag it reoccurring. And I would have that reoccurring tag added to whatever tasks are reoccurring. That way, if I want to do a fast audit, let me pull in all of my tasks that are reoccurring. I can head over to my task pipeline. Let's say I closed 5 in one day. I don't want to have to go to each one of those properties to find the reoccurring tasks. Or you see that tasks are populating on closed properties. I would say, come over here, go to closing tasks. Here where it says property status closed, I would also add on that tag reoccurring. And then that way you can pull in a really fast list of all the reoccurring tasks that are open on those closed properties and go through and update so that they are no longer reoccurring tasks. Again, it's going to be a matter of selecting that task. I'm going to go ahead and go over to my property again. Not a good example. It's going to be a matter of going to that particular task, clicking on that reoccurring button, deleting out that days, and then saying update. That's currently how it would work. We're definitely looking into ways to make that a lot smoother, but that is the way that we would want. That's the fastest way I would suggest to do it right now. Cool. Interesting. Intake form, make the agent portal user as required. Okay. So it looks like it kind of depends, right? When we're talking about our intake form, it depends on who's filling it out. If I'm talking about an internal team member is filling out this intake form, maybe right now you have it that your agents send that intake form to you and then your internal team members fill it out. They are going to manually be selecting who it is that the team is, who is that assigned to it, and then they have the option to select the agent. I would definitely train my TCs to select the agent every single time. I would say, listen, it's crucial that you make sure that the agent who sent you the intake form is selected from this screen. Otherwise, they're not going to be selected when that intake form gets submitted. That's not a horrible thing. We can always select the agent after the fact. If I go to the property here where it says agent portal user, sometimes it won't say that. Let me see if I have one that doesn't say it. Nope. Here we go. This is an example of one that just says who it's created by, right? If I wanted to assign this particular intake form to a person or a property to a person, I'll click on where it says community team member, or it'll say your guys' name most likely. You'll click on manage access. And then here you'll go to agent portal users, and then you'll assign it to that property. So if you don't assign it on the time of filling out that intake form, you can assign it after the fact. And then you can reassign it and reassign it and reassign it. You can add multiple people depending on which plan you're on. You can add multiple agents to one property if needed. Now, if you're an agent and you're filling out that intake form, it's going to look a little different, right? So I'm going to go ahead and impersonate an agent to show you guys what that looks like. If you guys are an agent, you're filling it out and you're like, you're going over and you're like, it's time for you to fill out that intake form. Let's go ahead and go over to our intake forms. Let me grab this one. What I want you to take notice is that it doesn't ask me that question. It doesn't ask me who's it assigned to, who's the agent portal user. It just jumps right into that address, right? So the reason that it's like this is because that agent, Justin, has already been assigned to this particular has already been assigned to the correct person. We can either go over to organization users, go over to our agents and click on Justin and see the information there. We can also go over to our hammer icon into templates, head over to our intake form, click on edit on any of our intake forms, and then go down to assigned agents. And here you're going to see what agents are assigned. So here you can see this is already set to default. It's going to be for the Northwestern buyers and sellers transaction. The team user that's assigned to this is going to be the community team member. This is the brokerage. That's the time zone. So when Justin submits it, community team member, which is me, is going to get a notification that a new intake form has been submitted. So if it's the agent filling it out, they as long as you have this part set up, they don't need to select who it's being assigned to. They're just entering in the data that they need to get over to. Cool. I'm going to go ahead and say cancel form. It's always good practice if you open up an intake form and you do not need it to select cancel form at the bottom versus just exiting out of the screen. And the reason I say that is because if we're ever trying to, let's say you clicked on a couple values, right? And you just exited out of it. If another person goes to fill out that same intake form, it will save the data. It tries to save the data on that intake form. So cancel form is probably your best bet to refreshing that the data entry for that intake form. Oh, looks like the last question that we had that was kind of something that came up quite frequently was I've been adding in details on my contacts, but they're not saving. Just like I had mentioned earlier, when we're talking about editing contacts, I'm just going to go ahead and open up someone. If I start to type in Mary, and then I go to nickname and I say Jilly Bean, and I go to cell phone and I type in a cell phone number. If I don't press enter and I just refresh the data, it's not going to save, right? So when it turns purple, if it's Mary, we're going to want to press enter on our keyboard. When it goes from purple to white or purple to gray, that means that it's saved. So now if I refresh, Mary is going to stay there, right? So it's just a matter of making sure that we're pressing enter on our keyboard. That way we see that purple go to white, or again, it can go to gray because this one's like kind of a slightly gray color. But if I hover away from it, it'll turn white. That's how we know that it's saved. So just make sure, always press enter on your keyboard. If you see anytime that it turns purple, press enter on your keyboard after you're done typing to make sure that it's saved. It's the same thing with our task templates too. When you're entering those task names, you're going to want to press enter on your keyboard to make sure to save those values. Cool. Alrighty. Any other questions for today? Cool. I have a couple announcements coming up. Some cool things happening with Open to Close. We are going through and we are reworking how we are going to be doing our classes. So definitely head over to the Learn tab, head over to webinars. Right now, we still have a couple more classes until the end of this month. I believe it'll go into maybe the beginning of April, but there is going to be some changes to the available webinars that we have. We're going to be starting to start that advanced training course where we're going to be able to go over more advanced topics with you guys. We'll have a training specific time for it. And the advanced kind of training course that we're talking about property triggers and how to implement the scale account. We're talking about how to create complex smart blocks and how to use smart block groups. We're talking about how to level up our intake forms and using our form conditions in our internal our form triggers. So there's going to be a lot of really cool courses coming up where we're just focused in on one topic that you guys can take that and add it into your account. That's why that learning style is so incredibly helpful for us, because then we'll know, okay, how do you want that information? How do you want to learn about it? Right? Does a workshop, how we're having it today, work? Do we want to have a little bit more hands-on? How does that work for you guys? Do we want guides that get sent out afterwards? Whatever that makes sense to do. So definitely keep an eye on this page and take a look at this. As we have them updated, I will either obviously mention it on Wednesday workshop, but I will also make sure to post about it on Facebook as well. So if you haven't already, definitely feel free to join our Facebook group. I don't have the link for it. And I never have the link for it when I mention it. If you guys are looking for that and you're like, how do I get into it? Definitely feel free to reach out to us and support. Send us a message and say, hey, Hannah said there's a Facebook group. I'm not in it yet. What's the link for it? And we'll make sure to get that over to you guys. Awesome. Alrighty, guys. Well, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday. I hope that you guys are staying cool or staying warm wherever you are, depending on where you are. Make sure you eat a snack. Seriously, stop right now. Go eat a banana or apples, whatever you're not allergic to. So have some nuts. Drink water, and I will see you guys next week. Thanks for joining me today.